Hey everyone, welcome to yet another episode of the Interjections podcast, the Undiscovered Decade, as we have subtitled it. This is a podcast where we look back at the 1990s and try to find the hidden gems that are buried in our past. Something deep down within us that might rise up and take us over with its enthusiasm or its thrills. Have you ever seen Split?
Multiple versions of it.
Have you ever seen Split? Well, there was a version of it in the 90s, apparently. So this month, we've been focusing a lot on specific actors, as we usually say at the end when we do our picks of the month. And this month, we chose one from John Lithgow, an actor we like often on from many of his films.
More on than off.
More on than off, yeah.
Third Rock from the Sun, baby.
Yeah.
No.
So we picked the film Raising Cain, mostly because it was the best choice of the month, but
I thought it was because it sounded like Raising Cain and it sounded cool.
Is that why you thought we picked it?
Yeah.
August was a very sparse month.
August was a little low in 1992. Well, once Corey tells us the other films, you'll see why. But it also was directed by Brian De Palma. So this gives us a chance to talk about his filmography. He is a master of the thriller throughout his career. He owes a lot to Hitchcock. He has stated he's a big fan and always was a big inspiration in him as he made his films. You can see in the film Body Double, he pretty much is
You say owes, I say plagiarizes.
homaging Rear Window. So I just learned there were two versions of this film that I never knew about. I don't know if we all saw the same version.
Yeah, we could.
Well,
I've seen both, so I know.
well, Corey, you want to explain like how that was laid out? It wasn't really that much of a difference. It was like
Well, here's the thing.
the storylines were misordered.
Yeah. Apparently the film got taken away from De Palma in post-production, and the studio re-edited and reorganized a lot of the scenes. So years later, when it got a Blu-ray release from Shout Factory, an editor over in the Netherlands edited a version that was closer to De Palma's script. He consulted with the script and made sure that it was a little bit closer to his version. And then De Palma saw it, loved it, and then commissioned to get it released on this version.
So he didn't do any work.
Wait, so is it it's a non-director's director's cut? Because somebody else did.
De Palma had such flack. He had someone else voluntarily make his director's cut.
Yeah. The big difference is reorganized in the beginning. So in the version that we watch, let's dive into the plot a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that.
John Lithgow plays Carter Nix, who is this child psychologist, who within the first couple of minutes we see that he's a little unhinged, that he's been kidnapping children and shipping them over to his father's clinic in order to be guinea pigs for his research. In the director's cut version, it jumps ahead a little bit to where we find out that his wife's having an affair.
So it's for some of that stuff.
Yeah, and the studio hated that it focused more on Davidovich at the beginning. They wanted to start off immediately with Lithgow.
Huh.
I think by starting with the affair, you're a little more sympathetic to Lithgow in the director's cut version, because in this, you're just like, okay, he's nuts already.
Yeah.
There's no...
It's okay that she's having an affair. Maybe she'll get out of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
So which version? We saw the
original cut.
the original.
So the
one.
original
So the one with Lithgow in the beginning, with
Right.
the chloroform and
Okay,
everything.
all right.
Yeah.
So we saw the Lane version.
Well, honestly,
I think both versions are good, but I think the director's cut's better.
I'd rather see the original and then hear what they changed to see if I would be able to like it more.
Yeah.
Like Blade Runner gets confusing about what he changes.
All right.
Because it's sometimes so minute that you're like, why bother?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think the other thing is like if you do it with Jenny's plot first, not only I agree that you probably feel a little bit more sympathetic toward him, but that also could be a reason for him to like, because the whole thing is he's got like multiple personalities, and you could conceive that as a reason why he just fucking broke.
Right.
But it was not. Like, they go deeper into how his father was basically abusing him into like separating his personality into so many different versions.
The director's cut, does it cut to him starting to kidnap children after he sees the affairs happening at the park? Like after
Oh yeah, because it starts off with her meeting like Stephen Bauer and all that part in the antique store.
Yeah.
And then later down the line is when you see him start to abduct the kids. But by that point you're like, yeah, you're eased a little more into the lurid melodrama.
Right.
Whereas in this, it's just like you're jumping headlong into it.
Yeah, you just
I feel like in this version, no spoilers or anything. Well, we're gonna get to that later.
We
but,
just
I hope so.
but
That's our point.
I feel like in this version, right away that Cain already is a figment of his imagination. Whereas in the director's cut, they're a little more cat and mouse with that. They're not as overt.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were also like,
obviously the other twist later in the movie is you think the father is a figment of his imagination, and he's actually real.
Right.
yeah, because the father's also played by John Lithgow. Like, all of these personalities are played by Lithgow talking to himself in different framing, including the father.
This is why I said, have you seen Split? Because it's similar to how James McAvoy ends up playing a bunch of different characters, and James McAvoy is just wearing a bunch of different clothing. So it's,
Yeah.
Maybe
I actually haven't seen Split, but I gathered that was kind of.
Well, basically, he has multiple personality disorder.
Right.
That's all you need to know. And I'm not going to go into more Split, but James McAvoy plays several of his personalities. There's none that are just like, oh, that's the woman. Like, same. I think United States of Terror does the same thing, where she plays herself, but like puts on a trucker hat when she's a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the beginning of this one, Cain shows up, and it's just John Lithgow in sunglasses, like, and he's just like, the evil twin vibe, and they actually say like, oh, it's just two twins arguing about something while this woman's knocked out in a car. And so I think you're led to believe that like it is two people until later on in the movie, when it's just it's the same person just talking to himself.
Yeah,
I didn't catch on until like a little bit later.
Really?
Yeah.
For instance,
like
the thing
until I got a clearer look at the evil twin's other hand. I was like, he's got a ring on. Did he have a ring on before? And then I was like, oh, that's what gave it away for me. I was like, noticing they both had the same exact ring.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the scene with the father where he drugs him in the hotel room, that gives it away automatically that Carter is Cain, because he's dressed like Carter, but he's acting like Cain.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why it was interesting, because like at that point you still think that the father is also one of the personalities. You're like, oh, how is he knocking him out? Whoa.
That's actually when I realized the guy was that scene.
Right.
Because like I realized I was confused when I saw the evil twin like feeling up the brother's wife. And I was like, ooh, but then I saw the ring on his hand. I was like, wait a minute, he's not the married one. I'm confused.
Yeah, I think they did a fine job of slipping it in, but the only reason I knew it immediately was because they weren't showing them in a two-shot.
Yeah.
So they kept going back and forth. I bet it's his imagination.
Yeah.
I just
and then they had a crooked angle on him too.
Yeah.
But like that just made me think like, oh, he's the unhinged one. He's really a bad guy.
Yeah.
I also didn't think that his brother would break out of jail. He kind of implies that he's like, "You're out?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm out." He's on a random side street near the park. How would he find his twin brother?
Right.
Right.
He comes out of nowhere, so I don't think that he would just pop up.
Yeah.
Especially after he drugged the woman,
Well, I didn't know the vibe of the movie yet.
Yeah.
Like I knew nothing about the movie, so like I was just
I just tried to think of logistics, I guess.
It
The-
can't be
the other-
understated how
It could have
good.
it could have been a
Lithgow
funny
was.
movie, a random brother popping out of nowhere while the other one's kidnapping a child. Like it could have been a comedy.
It kind of
No,
is.
it had the feeling of like, well, also the way that they started it out, it had the feeling of like a villain of the week Lifetime movie type thing. I'm like, I could see this like accidentally ending up in the Lifetime programming section because just like this guy chloroforms a woman within the first 5 minutes of the movie, and you're like, oh, this is not going to end well.
I almost want
It
to
is
say that this
comedy,
is
so
a
he
dark
was like-
comedy.
He's like
is-
sneezing in the face. It's like, oh,
I don't-
I'm sorry.
I don't
I'm
think-
sorry. Like, so you had to.
I don't know. I'm inclined to disagree, Corey, but go on. I'm curious.
No, it's definitely a dark comedy because the way Lithgow's playing it is way too campy to be taken seriously. And some of the scenarios are inherently silly. I think this is De Palma riffing on himself in a
Interesting.
tongue-in-cheek way.
Isn't Lithgow always campy though? Almost.
He
always?
is.
Yeah, Cliffhanger's not
He's like a villain in a couple movies.
I know.
Certain.
No, I mean, okay, a couple on them, a half.
He's a character actor, so there's that bit of over the topness, but there's actually there was one fan theory going around, I guess presumably because of the first cut of the movie, where his character in Dexter is actually like a continuation of Cain or the evil twin or whatever, and you're like, it's a stretch, but I guess I can, like, if you watch nothing more than the first 20 minutes of the movie, I can see that
right.
Yeah.
being
Well,
continuation.
People love connecting their universes.
Right.
The schlocky dialogue, it can't. There's no way that's supposed to be played straight.
Yeah.
Well, there are
If
parts.
Cain has picked his lock. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't exactly lend itself to a Lifetime movie.
I don't know. But then if you play it up to the fact that like he's been raised by this, foreign abusive psychologist who probably speaks like that normally.
Yeah.
And at one point when he's playing a 7-year-old,
Yeah.
which
He got really pouty
You
like a
see-
7-year-old too. He really just like went all bright-eyed and shit. It's kind of disturbing.
this is where things started going off the rails for me because
But
I'm like,
narratively,
well, narratively, like the editing in the beginning and the middle and almost the end was just they kept cutting back between his different personalities and dealing with these different people, and I'm like, okay, I don't know who's supposed to be a bad guy, who's just an innocent bystander, and then at one point when like Jenny, he pushes her in the lake and then she's back, and I'm like, is she really back, or is this like a figment of his imagination, like he's just having nightmares because of guilt,
Yeah.
or is she really back? And then she's really back, and you're like, oh, but okay, like he very easily killed this other person, but
Yeah.
then
so wait,
It is
the
what-
important one comes back, and you're like,
Yeah,
what version
even-
did you watch, Jeff?
I watched whatever was on Amazon, which I think it was the original cut.
Okay,
You see,
they maybe made that more clear in the director's cut.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
in the earlier scene when they were at the morgue, I was confused when they showed the because like
that's what I was about to
because
say.
the
Yeah.
hair was different.
Yeah, I thought it was just like, oh, her hair floated apart. I
think that's just a red herring that
Yeah.
is putting there.
I thought it was Jenny.
Yeah, I was
So-
like and then like when she popped up out of nowhere again, where you thought she was like the imagination.
Yeah.
I was confused again because like I
Then
thought
she was
what-
physically
yeah.
there.
well, like,
and she
well,
was
I wasn't sure. Like, was it an illusion or was it real? And then it became real. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
no, it's
So that's when I was like, okay, so it was the woman in the trunk that they found, and
And
blah blah
I-
blah, yada
I
yada. So
forgot
my
about
brain
her
just went
too.
like,
it's also worth noting that like he's also trying to frame the guy that his wife is
Yeah.
having an affair with, and
Kind of funny.
all of this is happening with the ticking clock of he actually did kidnap some children, and only one of his personalities knows where they are. So they're trying to, like, then they call in this other psychologist who has studied him, like all of the literature about him, but like was almost kind of starstruck when meeting him, which was weird.
Yeah.
But like she's trying to talk, and then that's when he like cycles through all of the other personalities to try to get to, like, they still have to find these kids while all of this is happening.
Yeah, I think that, well, obviously the plot's a bit of a mess, but I think in terms of like set pieces and camera work, it's as good as De Palma's ever been. There's that shot with Greg Henry at the police station where they track from upstairs, downstairs, all the way. I think it's all the way down to the morgue.
All the way to the morgue. Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. I wanted to point out that I often find when they do these exposition dumps, it feels like they're just trying to force it when they're sitting in the same room, but having it go through the whole building, it felt like, oh, you're getting to see it. It's really just a way to get this exposition out without it feeling perfunctory, you know?
Yeah.
My mom would always say on stage, she used to direct people on stage in the background so that nothing was, you know, out of focus, not pulling your eyes away from the main action. But so then the cast wasn't just kind of standing there watching the action.
You gotta
So
give them a bit of business.
Had a reason. Someone's doing business, so that gave them a chance to make a fully functioning police station. That's
Right.
what I got out of that shot, and it felt like you were coming along with her for her information.
Sure.
And then you also got a sense of what Greg Henry and his partners' business was there.
Right.
So they're all kind of respected, and you get the sense that they can go anywhere in the station. And you know, I just thought it was a good idea for him to do it that way, but it also helped him focus on his cinematography, like showcase what he can do with long shots.
Right.
Yeah.
Even in the end, even the ending, the climax at the motel, it's pretty much like a self-parody of of those shots that he basically stole from Battleship Potemkin, the Hitchcock, and all the other things.
Yeah.
Motion and everything, where everything's like cross-cutting and interconnecting at the same time. It builds suspense, but at the same time, from a distance, you're watching it, you're like, this is contrived and ridiculous. But I can't help but, for me, I can't help but love it.
Mm-hmm. I really liked the cinematography, even with that feeling you might get from it. There was something I learned from this, actually. I'd never heard of this type of shot. Did I told you about this?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you told me about this earlier.
This thing called the diopter lens. Did you know about this, Jeff?
Yeah.
Oh, split.
Yeah, I had never heard of it somehow, but I've never worked as a camera person really. So it pretty much splits the lens. So say if I'm up here, kind of, but then obviously with the lens in a computer, it's different, but say Jimmy's even further back, they keep everything in focus by having the lens split right down the middle. And so they can get something like in the police station when they're trying to decide what to do and get that other psychologist in, they have Carter in the background doing a sketch of Jack so that he can get them to get Jack. But you see it being sketched in the background and the cop's still talking about it up in the foreground. And you don't notice that the line is right on the doorway.
Yeah.
So would always frame it so that you don't even realize you get to see both things at the same time, because the eye goes to something that's in focus all the time, usually the eyes. But this way you're paying attention to both things, and he lets you not have to do the work in your imagination. And apparently he's a master of this. I didn't know. And so I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole to see all his diopter shots in all his movies. And I'm fascinated. I love the shot now.
He does a lot of low angle, like parabolic lens in this movie too, and Dutch angles.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps you deliberately off balance for most of it. I'm thinking in particular the scene with the father in the hotel room. He's shot with a long lens, So when he comes towards you, it's like very distorted, and he's like Hulk. He's like basically hulking over the shot. Yeah, if nothing else, you gotta admire the camera work in this.
Yeah.
That's got to be my favorite part.
Yeah. It was definitely well done.
How did you feel about the side characters at all? Like,
I love Greg
Bauer.
Henry. Every time Greg Henry shows up in anything, he's fantastic.
Look, I'm gonna be honest. I spent the whole time wondering if Greg Henry was the guy that played Vigo in Ghostbusters 2.
How dare you?
Really? That's cool.
That guy's in the mouth of madness.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They were, yeah, I don't know. It was just they just seemed like two dummy cops that were like getting dragged along for the ride reluctantly, which I guess, you know, works for the story because no one was really appreciating how dangerous the situation was. And so you have law enforcement be like, oh yeah, sure, okay, there's like 4 of them and one guy. Yeah, no, that's
Who's ever heard of
You didn't buy
sure
that?
thing, weird German lady.
that?
I mean, they at least like gave, like, even though they kind of mocked it and didn't take it too seriously, they still just,
I know.
you know, followed through.
But then
with it, followed up. Like,
ultimately-
yeah, might as well. It's our best lead.
Right. But ultimately, like, it came down to like one of their who was the guy, like, was he a retired officer or was he
Yeah, he
just
was a
like the
retired
janitor or
officer,
something
yeah.
that just like wandered and it was just like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy's father before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, retired.
Oh,
yeah.
thanks, plot device.
That's the guy I was talking about in the after shot.
Yeah.
He's foreground, yeah.
Right, yeah. It's that whole thing, and it's just, you know, there was no break in the case until this retired officer just happened to be walking by and be like, oh, I remember that case.
I worked a case like that years ago.
Shut up, Jerry.
Right.
Get back to the gym.
But that's when you also realize that, like, then it goes into the whole thing with the father, and you find out that not only is it not one of his other personalities, but he's actually alive and has faked his suicide twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little ridiculous, but I actually admire them for following
Yeah.
through on it and not really. They kind of make
I
it.
don't go to this movie for plausibility, so it's
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, wasn't this based on like a book or something?
this is something.
Or is that a different Raising Cain?
Well, here's the thing. This came off the heels of Bonfire of the Vanities. So
Yeah,
he's like, I need a hit, and people basically associate me with psychological thrillers. So maybe I'll go back to that well.
yeah.
But this ironically didn't do much better than Bonfire of the Vanities.
So what you're saying is this is not the inspiration for the really delicious chicken franchise that has been sweeping across the nation, Raising Cain's Chicken Fingers.
And taking
There's no dogs in this movie.
taking the
evidently.
Google search by storm.
Yeah. Did you know this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
like
these
Yeah,
are
there's no
the
dogs in this.
chicken fingers I've ever had. I made Corey go find one.
Actually, wait. Jimmy's had it in New
Yeah, we
Orleans.
had it. That's what we had at the mall in New
No,
Orleans.
you guys ate. I wasn't
You
hungry.
didn't have any? You didn't taste some of the chicken?
I might have had a fry
Yeah, I probably
because
ate all
you
that
guys
chicken.
offered it.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I'll take your word for it. I just wasn't hungry.
Take your word
I
for it.
wasn't gonna offer you any of that chicken. It's too good.
I mean, oh, sure.
But that's where we went, Raising Cane's.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just hungry. Why didn't we just have this ready to, like, we could be eating Raising Cane's chicken on set while we're doing this?
The closest one is in Philly. It's coming
That's-
closer, but it's not in New Jersey yet.
So we shoot it on location next time. That's fair.
There you go.
It says
So-
it on where they are.
Well, if there aren't that many,
No, there's over 300 now.
okay. And you know where all of them are.
Know where the closest one to me is.
Okay. That's all you need.
So,
So
they just opened it up in March.
amazing. So real quick,
Yeah.
I was just looking at the poster on the Wikipedia page and I didn't realize that at the top of it, like, you know, it's got his face all split and whatever. It's got the scary looking
You know you like that
Cain
tag.
logo, but the top of the tagline, demented, deranged, deceptive De Palma
It's so good.
around the top. I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
that's
That would have got me in the theater.
listen, he's
Absolutely.
a master of self promotion.
That's so good. Good thing too. We're recording this right now on the 30th anniversary. The first time we've done that in the entire.
Don't feel too bad about this movie not doing well, because De Palma bounced back after this. He did Carlito's Way and Mission Impossible immediately after this.
Yeah. So I've never
But
seen
the
Carlito's
time-
Way.
Carlito's Way is really good.
Yeah, I've heard it's one of the blind spots I have for Pacino.
Never seen it. Actually, this is the first Brian De Palma movie I've ever seen. I've
Whoa,
not even
really?
seen Scarface.
Really?
Untouchables, you've
Yeah.
never?
Oh.
Guys, I don't watch movies. That's why you guys do the thing with the posters.
Fair
That's
enough.
great.
I don't know shit.
Okay.
He's a special little boy.
Carrie even he hasn't seen.
Yeah. What did you think of the film?
I actually really like this. I mean, it's a guilty pleasure, I guess, but like I said, I think he's deliberately being campy with this. So in that respect, I would probably give it a B plus.
Oh, hey, me too.
Yeah,
B plus.
sounds about right.
Wow.
Jeff is going to be very negative.
I'm going with a C.
Okay.
Because I'm like, it was
He hates fun.
no, I don't hate fun. I'm just like, maybe I'm looking through it as someone who, like, you know, I part of my college education was in psychology, and I had been like following multiple personality stuff for like a long time, and just looking back on it becoming a horror movie plot, I'm like,
I don't love that.
and I mean, like,
Well-
and it was enjoyable, but also just like the camp didn't work for me, and the editing was all over the place, and it felt like it was just very reliant on jump scares a lot.
Good points.
And it's like every 3 seconds you're just like, okay, he's raising his arm, someone's gonna, oh look, there's someone in the shadows, and it's just, or oh no, they're gonna take the blanket off of the person in the morgue, and it's gonna be a scary face, and it's like, it's, I don't know, it was both predictable and a mess. But John Lithgow is a national treasure, so let's see.
Fantastic.
Woo!
To quote-
Let's do.
I felt a bit the same way as Jeff at first, because I don't like that they were using multiple personality as a horror trope, but that's because that was back then. It's become more progressive these days.
I don't know if
Like the
split
knowledge
very
on
progressive.
general
The
knowledge.
knowledge has
There's
gotten
like
better.
not many people knew about multiple personality disorders.
Yeah.
So they just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
Or there might have been like maybe a few things earlier in film that's
Yeah,
utilized it.
I tried to
or-
separate myself
Yeah.
from that. I
You see it a lot in
understand.
soap operas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then thinking about the cinematography and Lithgow's performance, and talking about all this, it helped me appreciate it more. So I'd probably give it a B at this point, but
Well,
it
I'm-
was my pick to watch too. So,
Yeah.
I did enjoy watching it. Not gonna lie.
yeah. I don't disregard this. As,
No. Honestly, my opinion can be summarized in a quote from one of the other reviews that I'm reading on the Wikipedia page. Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly assigned the grade of B- and wrote, "Is Raising Cain a good movie? No way. You could almost say it's intentionally bad, a gleeful piece of jerry-built schlock.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yet De Palma's naughty boy gamesmanship has a perverse fascination even when it doesn't work, which is most of the time."
Oh my god.
He's a fucking hater.
Bitter.
I like him.
I just like that quote. But it was okay.
Yeah, it's just fine. I'm not really gonna watch this several more times.
You will.
But if it's on TV, I'm not like, oh, this movie.
But it's never on TV.
It really isn't.
That's why it's a forgotten gem.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. We're bringing it back to you.
Yeah. There you
Bring it
go.
back. Bring it
America.
back.
We're raising Cain again.
Hey.
Raising him up to the ramp.